All right, Lucas. So, like we do on this show very frequently, make a call, and our call is 100% correct. So, not sure if you saw this, what happened last week, but when we first got wind of the fact that the Winklevoss twins had made a contribution to Donald Trump's campaign, we looked at the amount and we said, "Huh, $1 million. I thought there was a limit on that. Did they do it via PAC or a super PAC?" And apparently they didn't do any of those things, and their money came right back to them.
Who knew? And what a dashing! I don't know which of the Winklevoss is on the left, but if I wear a tux, then that paisley tux is the one that I want.
Yeah,
Right.
man, is he rocking a pocket square in that photo?
I can't tell, but it looks darn good. I mean, I don't get jealous for boring tuxes, but that is Lloyd Christmas caliber right there. That's a good one.
And some identical twins kind of aren't that identical, but these guys just are spitting
They
image of each other.
very, very identical. And I don't know how old they are, but there's a lot more. I'm a twin. I don't know if I've ever told you I'm a twin. Um, it used to be a rare thing to be a twin. We'd have a whole passel of ladies staring over our cart and tweaking our cheeks whenever we went to the grocery store when I was growing up. There's more twins in the world today. Um, but yeah, the Winklevoss I think they might be right around my same age too.
Yeah, and by the way, I think we were remarking on their handles. Like, these are highly desirable handles. Look at that, Tyler and Cameron. Like, I
Tyler, yeah, I know, and yeah, not to flex, but I was on Twitter when Twitter was a phone number before there were handles. But even trying as I might to get at Lucas early in the launch of the application, like I guess it must have been 2007 when the iPhone came out. Um, I still did not get at Lucas, and then I canceled my account anyway, so it doesn't
Did
matter.
you see how much an original in the box first gen Apple phone unopened went for recently? Did you hear
No,
about that?
how? Oh, let me guess. Let me guess. $2 million.
Yeah, something outrageous like that. It's more than any reasonable amount. It's something in the hundreds of thousands. Like, it could have been like nearer to your number. I'll have to look it up quick. Give me 2 seconds.
I have here on the bookshelf behind my desk two unopened boxes of Adobe Photoshop 5.5. If I can get $2 million for them, somebody DM me. I'll sell them in a heartbeat. Still in the plastic shrink wrap, mind you, and I don't know if they're diskettes or on CD, but that's the only unboxed software that I still have.
There you go, Lucas, right there.
Wow. I got yeah, that looks tiny. That's not an iPhone.
It is. If you don't remember, they were small because this was the era of flip phones and the whole miniaturization. When I think in the movie Zoolander, if you recall, they were making fun of it because they said, "Oh, this is the trend, so eventually they're going to be the size of a thumbnail." And when the iPhone first came out, it was very, very small phone because what you had to get people to jump on board with was this the Nokia phones and the flip phones and what have you. So they had to make a form factor that would fit in people's purses and whatever. And we hadn't gotten to the point where a phone was considered to be a tablet or whatever. So I remember when this thing came out, I was actually using a Palm Pilot, and it didn't make the switch until I think the iPhone 5. It's probably when I finally
Goodness.
flipped.
I love Mac and have used them for many years. I got the iPhone as soon as I could get my hands on it. And I still have my original iPhone if I could only find where I have hidden it from myself. But I never got rid of that one. Still saved it just for the memories. Um, I,
Well, there's a running joke amongst the people that I know, and that's that you never buy a Rev One Apple product because it's invariably the has all kinds of flaws and things that they ended up correcting. And I'm more speaking to the Steve Jobs era more than anything else. But like, I think that this is played out fantastically with the new virtual reality set. I imagine you saw that Apple isn't even producing that thing anymore because nobody wanted to buy it because it was so flawed.
If they had only listened to me, if they had just listened to it, because I didn't um and I'm not gonna buy into that FUD on Apple One Gen 1 products. The Gen 1 one was the notebook, the notepad. I forget what they had before the iPhone. They had
The
some sort
Newton,
of Rolodex kind
the
of.
Newton, the
The
Apple Newton.
Newton, that's what
Yeah.
it was. The Newton, yeah. I didn't get the Newton, but I mean, I got the iPod when the iPod first came out. People were, I bought the first iPod also at Best Buy back when Best Buy was putting a toe in the Macworld waters from its PC roots. And oh, look at the Newton! Oh my goodness! But I still think the iPhone looks way too small for what I remember.
Well, this thing looks just like a Palm Pilot, man. I mean, that's
Yeah.
like Palm and Palm OS used to be the thing. Like I remember having one of those, and it was such a game changer from anything else that had existed. It was just like it was the first smartphone. It just couldn't make phone calls.
I don't know. I was a Nokia fan, and I used to really like I can send text messages on a Nokia phone without looking at it, and I never turned on T9 texting, never turned on Siri or any of these AI helpers either. I have no Alexa, for the love of God. Um, but yeah, I could sit in class with my Nokia 5335 and text my sister books and books and books. I mentioned I was really early adopter of Twitter back when it was a texting service, also because I had a texting group that I would send. I had a volleyball group that I would send notifications where we were playing in Austin every day, which that volleyball group exists to this day. Going to the Winklevoss too. It was one of the first Facebook groups, and it now is massive. It has, I don't know, 100,000. I don't know, set like something unbelievable.
You're in control of a Facebook group that has 100,000 people in it. Amazing.
I gave up control. I mean, when I quit volleyball, when I quit playing volleyball, I gave up control to a community member who runs it to this day, and I have really nothing to do with it. He took it kind of next level. It probably had 17,000 people in it. Man, maybe not that many, maybe only like 10,000. But even then, like the notifications and all of that to deal with all of that was unbelievable. But it's called the Sand Wannabes. There's a lot to say for the right name, and I was a great trash talker, and I used to call people wannabes all the time. I was a wannabe myself, which was a lot better than a never was or a has been. So yeah, I started the Sand Wannabes in like 2004, like or the day that groups came out. I created the Facebook group for. I was at Texas A&M back then, so it was an early school that was allowed into the. Anyway, Grant, you're really dragging me down memory lane here with all of these ancient artifacts. A Palm Pilot. I used to make fun of people with Palm Pilot. It's so Hillary.
Whatever, man. Palm Pilot was great. Like it had that pencil and it had that like writing interface, like that
Yes.
the little green area. That's where you would write the characters and then it would transform into the text. Like I
Oh
could enter
yeah.
things so fast into that.
I never had one, so I didn't realize it had like text recognition or that sort of like
Yeah,
writing.
the way it would work is in the upper right hand corner behind that tiny little. I guess I'll like try to like click on that image. I think it'll zoom it up if I do that. Yeah. So see where that 3 is, where behind that,
Yeah.
it would have like a little stylus that sat behind that 3, and then you would pull that thing out. You could activate those little keys at the bottom there in that little writing area, and then see that little ABC and the 1, 2, 3. If you tapped on one of those, it would flip like what text recognition it was doing, and then you scratched it in that little area, and that thing got all scratched up and marred, and like it never ceased to work. And you could tap on all the little icons. Man, that thing was the shit. That was the original. That was the original smartphone right there, man. Like, I
Yeah,
don't know if they ripped off Newton, if they got their hands and thoughts behind whatever was going on there. But yeah, that was definitely, the thing.
I'm sure there was some sort of association there. I did use one a little bit, my uncle, and I remember those darn styluses. I remember them like being chewed and lost and everything else. But I played backgammon. I think a lot of too of like associations between these pieces of hardware and the games that get put on them to sort of open people's world up. Windows had solitaire and hearts. Um, Mac had Snake. I think the first game I ever played on a Mac was Snake, way back on like Macintosh Classic, Macintosh Mica, and I would spool blank pages to the printer, a dot matrix printer that would then be printing out blank pages so I could defeat the upper levels of Snake. Yeah, it was fun times. But backgammon, I played a lot of backgammon on that, but it was never my phone. I would just challenge people. Anyway, enough about this. Let's talk about things going on today. Um, what topics do we have today?
Well, this is the next one. So I think what we should do is kind of rip through a few of the things that we are kind of on our mind, and then we'll dive into the more technical meat, because I said something recently in a post, and I think it's worth talking in a bit more detail, because I'm really spun up on this idea. I think that this is absolutely a fascinating topic, as far as like how silent payments can work. So this is something that is being worked on in Bitcoin. So let's take the whole second half of the show, or whatever remaining time, and you can ask me a bunch of questions about it, and I'll just kind of lay things out the way that I see it. But let's just briefly touch on some more politics stuff for a second. So apparently, this debate is 100% confirmed to be in violation of campaign and federal election campaign laws, that says they cannot hold this debate in the way that they're doing it. The way that Kennedy knows how things work, he sues people all the time, and usually to the good, right? So like, I'm not saying he's some troll that just sues people and like shouldn't be doing this, but like, I don't think that these guys are going to get away with this, like, because he knows how to like put the screws to people. So they're clearly in the wrong here, and apparently they're going to proceed with this. But yeah, that looks like we're confirmed that Robert F. Kennedy being excluded from this debate is not appropriate.
Well, I did see this post with Holden. Which, by the way, I don't know if I told you, I reached out to the Kennedy Shanahan campaign to tell them that we had a show about crypto, and because they said they were courting and wanted to speak on as many platforms as possible. So they did get back to me, and I filled out the anyway. We Wouldn't it be crazy if we had Kennedy or Nicole Shanahan on the show? But I saw CNN post that they had taken four independent polls of the candidates, and that Kennedy did not meet. I guess that's not according to the FEC. Um, is that what you're telling me?
Well, so the way that they publish the rules, according to the last time I looked at this, so I don't know if they've been playing some games with moving this around, or if any of that kind of shenanigans have been happening. But they said that he had to get a certain value in a poll, which he already did. They didn't say, oh well, we're going to keep doing it, and it's got to be whatever, and we're going to get the game it however we want. It was said, hey, you have to meet a certain threshold of a percentage in a poll, which, like, immediately the Kennedy campaign said, well, that's already happened, and like presented the evidence and said, here's a poll that meets all the standards according to what you wanted. The second thing is they had to have enough electoral votes, or they had to be capable of winning the election, something like that. They had to have like 272 electoral votes that they could get. And so that one is a super interesting one, because Kennedy's been out there getting on the ballot in all kinds of places because as a third party candidate, he's not just immediately granted ballot access because only the two major parties or a party which has gotten a certain threshold of votes in previous years is automatically on the ballot, right? So, like, for instance, the Libertarian Party has been getting, 2-3% in a lot of states, like consistently. So the Libertarian Party is automatically on the ballot. So when they nominate somebody for president, you will always see a Libertarian candidate on the ballot because they've already met that threshold in times past. But if you have a candidate who's not endorsed by a party like that, then to get ballot access, they've got to meet the rules of the various states. And so Kennedy's been out there stumping for signatures and been, handling a grassroots, every state by state, effort to do this, which in a lot of ways really benefits his campaign. In times past, it always required that you do some sort of grassroots movement to get, a political candidate have a swell behind them because we used to have a caucus system, which we don't have anymore. In most states, there may still be some states that have it, but a lot of states have done away with the caucus system. And so, this idea that you needed to get a grassroots movement behind your candidate is the way that Ron Paul ran his campaign. I believe Obama had to do this as well. But on the heels of those two very populist movements, there was a big push to get away from that because it just put too much, juice behind certain candidates that, establishment players really didn't want. And so we've moved away from that. But with Kennedy going out here and doing this, he's gotten this, state by state, 50 state movement kind of going behind him, which has put his name out there into the world sphere in a way that if they hadn't had to do that, he wouldn't have as much, swell behind his campaign. But what it means is that he's actually met that threshold because they've had to do this, whereas both of these candidates are the presumptive nominees. They don't actually have the nomination because we haven't gone through that process yet. And because they don't have the nomination, they actually are not meeting the criteria required here. So that's the nuance around the rules that CNN proposed is that Biden and Trump they don't even meet the requirements according to what CNN originally put out. Let me see if I can find it.
Well, do you think CNN is going to get to the kitchen and rearrange some things and invite Kennedy to this little birthday party they're having, or do you think that he is not going to be invited? Because I, I mean, I would like to see him. Of course, I would like to see him at the debate, but I also saw that if he doesn't do the debate, he is going to live stream it and comment. And given the reach of traditional broadcast media and the reach of social platforms, and I thought it would be very interesting because it also gets him out from underneath the thumb of the moderator. But I thought it would. Either way, I'm very interested with what Kennedy has to say. It's been gladdening to hear some of his takes with regards to corporate interference, and getting out from under the traditional narratives of the dual or even uniparty system that we fall under. What
Yeah.
you got?
So here's the requirements right here. So as I said, he had to get be able to reach. So he has to, like, all participating debaters had to appear on a sufficient number of state ballots to reach 270 electoral votes. Presumptive nominees do not have that, even if they think that Trump is going to be the nominee. That's not what is currently the state. He has not gotten to that. Neither has Biden. There's been some rumblings that there's going to be a last minute audible pulled, and Biden might not even be the nominee for the Democratic Party. I've seen some conspiracy theories to this effect, which I wouldn't be surprised at all if something like that ends up being the case, because there seems to be some situations where he's mumbling, wandering around. Like, I don't know if maybe something's actually happening. I haven't had a chance to sit down with the guy. You know, I haven't seen a lot of this, but you know, something seems to be up with you know, Biden's mental capacity. So if something like this is happening, then who knows what might happen. But they do not meet this criteria, and Kennedy demonstrated that he met these two criteria with this 15% in four separate national polls. You know,
Yeah, well,
he's demonstrated this.
I was one of those, I should say, conspiracy theorists who like questioned the who the Democratic Party nominee was going to be, but it had nothing to do with the mental capacity of Biden. It had everything to do with the economy. I learned in my teens, it's the economy, stupid. And I was very surprised to see with regards to the state of price inflation, the state of the prices of real estate, and so many other factors that we're seeing, that we didn't get a younger, fresher face. And I I conjectured much earlier, and it hasn't happened. I don't know if it will, but I thought the Democrats might reach over and pull Kennedy because he would have been a fresher face, because Trump seemed.
He was originally running as a Democrat. I mean, that's he wanted to. Like they wouldn't let him. Like they kept him out of the process in so substantive a way. He's like, well, this is just collusion. Like I can't even try. They're not even letting the game be played. He was
Well,
totally willing to try and play the game.
yeah, and I had those expectations whenever he had far less traction, far smaller numbers, like seemed a lot further afield, wherever that may have been, left, right, center field, the rover, whatever. Hey, by the way, Texas A&M baseball. I don't know if you follow in that, but anyway, I don't know, go off on that tangent. But yeah, it hasn't happened, and I saw earlier this week, or maybe it was a week, not earlier this week, but over the weekend or at the end of last week, I saw somebody in the Kennedy campaign like post a video scrolling through either the DNC or a the Joe Biden account with all the attacks versus Kennedy and versus Trump, and it seemed like 8 times as many attacking Kennedy instead of Trump, which is also fascinating to, third party candidates make the game a lot more fun. Um,
Well, and we saw that the Democratic Party rigged it against Bernie Sanders, you know. So Bernie also tried to play the game, and they didn't let him play either. It's you know, the Democratic nomination process, or sorry, the nomination process within the Democratic Party has been completely captured by, you know, people who want to pick the winner. And I think, you know, this entire thing is going to blow up in the face of, you know, people who are trying to tell people who they should vote for. And I think the world is too fractured these days, where I don't think a lot of this stuff matters as much. You know, like CNN, who watches CNN? Like, you know, the kids, people, we're on these platforms. You know, we're looking at TikTok, we're looking at X, you know. And look at this. I think, as you alluded to, you know, this is going to happen, right? So this is going to be happening at the same time. You know, we're going to hold our own debate. And Trump said, hey, I'll debate Kennedy. So that would be like another major thing. Like, what if Kennedy and Trump just debate and like leave Biden out of it? That'd be wild too. Like, I think that's going to be another thing that I wouldn't be shocked to see it at all.
I think, and who knows, because I don't fall. I guess I would say probably a lot of Democrats disagree with me. Perhaps any expectations that I have, they not even being contrarian. I mean, you mentioned Bernie, the the things the DNC did against Bernie Sanders. Well, even President Obama, when Obama was running against Hillary, it seems that the DNC was favoring Hillary quite heavily. So I don't know if they do stream this though. Let's hold a space. Let's live stream it, and I'll try to keep my mouth shut. But it'd be awesome to further spool it out.
I don't know if we could keep our mouths shut, Lucas. Like we're gonna have to say something. You know, we'll definitely jump in and say a little bit as things are happening. Like no no doubt that that would be the case.
Okay, okay, fine. Well, I'll try to keep it to a minimum. Um, but anyway, good news with Bobby, and I've just been, early on also in the Bobby campaign, I was worried. I was worried that his gravelly voice would be an issue, but it's actually become quite endearing to me. I heard uh, I heard I don't know, I was scrolling this morning and some video with Bobby Kennedy came on and I thought, my, it's just like grown on me. Um, so
I heard that that's actually going to get better over time too. That you know, don't get too attached to it because I heard it's not permanent.
well, the thing that I really like is that he has both like a memorable voice, but also he's very eloquent. Perhaps that is because he's had quite a few I don't know, careers, different tacks that he's taken. Maybe it's being a lawyer, but I have found him to be very eloquent. Also Nicole Shanahan, very impressive. Um, it's I've seen a lot worse choices for a VP, that's for certain. But I won't name names. But let's move on. Let's move on. I don't want to dig a hole for myself on a Monday morning.
Right. We said we were going to talk about something technical, so let's get to it. All right. So this is somewhat going to be a split between like some amount of talking about Bitcoin because you know when we talk about Chia, it's hard not to talk about Bitcoin because they're so close. So this is the one that I've been keeping an eye on. So this is not new, by the way. Silent payments has been discussed and has been thought about for quite some time, but it's just been recently that this proposal has gotten to the level of being a BIP. And in Bitcoin, I think there's a higher bar for what it takes to actually get to the point where you know something is considered for an improvement protocol. And there, you know, kind of technically, there's nothing stopping you from doing this on Bitcoin right now. This has actually been implemented already, and you can do this. Let me actually pull that up in the place where you can do it right now if you want. So if you're interested in playing with this on Bitcoin, Cake Wallet currently supports silent payments. So these guys have already done this. So this idea that you know we have a BIP around silent payments has nothing to do with permission. It has everything to do with it being an adopted standard. So this has already been. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, go, but before you go too much further down silent payments, can you just give a basic description of silent payments? And maybe like what the conundrum or what the technical issue was in solving this notion of making payments silent or non-trackable.
So privacy is a big issue, right? Like we're all concerned that you know somebody's going to watch what we're doing, that they're going to see like one transaction that maybe we use to buy some coffee or some place where on the internet we say here's one of my BTC addresses or some address, and then after that I can pretty much you know watch Rusty for the rest of all time. And I watch where you buy coffee, I watch where you know buy other stuff, and over time you know this erodes your privacy. Like I shouldn't be able to keep track of what you're doing just because you bought coffee or because you mentioned something somewhere or because some payment you know was errantly mentioned somewhere. That's not desirable, right? So this is why we have things like Monero, right? People don't want to be tracked, and that's why we have cash. Like I shouldn't be tracked just because I'm doing one thing. Like doing this would be like if I went to the hardware store and bought, you know, a 50-cent bolt, then from all time you were able to, you know what I was doing with respect to complex financial things that might signal business dealings that I'm about to do, which, you know, could to your competitors signal something or could to, you know, an adversary signal something that you're doing that you wouldn't want them to do. So privacy is important. And what silent payment says is we have a way to do this on Bitcoin. without any upgrades, without any changes. We don't need ZK, we don't need zero knowledge, we don't need any of the rest of this stuff. We can do this one thing, and that'll get us this level of anonymity and privacy that we want. So that's what silent payments proposes to do.
Very interesting. And I don't know if you know this, but Phantom Wallet on what Solarium, Solana, Ethereum, and Polygon, and now BTC even has a function on it that you can just add wallets that you don't have the private key for, but that you want to watch. So we're even seeing that become easier to do. So very interesting. Yeah, go like continue on. I just wanted sort of like a basis of are you already no? Okay, go ahead. Continue down this silent payments on Bitcoin.
Okay, so it works like this. You generate this silent payment address. So it starts with SP. So in all addressing schemes, there's always some little prefix that says something about what your Bitcoin or your XCH or whatever address. Like you've probably experienced this on a variety of different chains, that there's always some kind of little prefix. So the prefix here is SP, and it's meant to indicate that this is a silent payment address. So you have one address that you publish, right? But you can't go search for this address on the blockchain. Like you will not find SP blah 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 something. That's not how this works. But you can use this payment. You can use this address to pay somebody, and then what happens on your side is you have to process every single block. Like that's the requirement here. So on Bitcoin, this is way less daunting. On something like Solana, where you're producing a block every picosecond or whatever the hell that L1 is doing, that could be a significantly daunting experience. But on Bitcoin, what this would look like is every 10 minutes we produce a block. So every 10 minutes you'd have to get the block, take a look and see if there's any payments that are specific to you. So it's a little bit different in the way that you process, because a lot of wallets right now will use centralized nodes, and what they'll do for centralized nodes is they'll say, hey, tell me all of the payments that have happened to these Bitcoin addresses, which has its own privacy implications if you do something like that, but it's pretty common that this is the way it works. So a lot of wallets have centralized infrastructure for full nodes. Those full nodes have an API, and most of them have some sort of mechanism to say, hey, tell me all of the UTXOs or coins that are associated with my addresses. And that's how you are able to arrive at a balance. So you take every coin that's yours, you sum it up, and you say, okay, you have 0.05 BTC or whatever it is that you've got. So this is different. When you make one of these silent payment addresses, you start from whenever you created that address. So let's say that its birth date was today at 10:30. You would say, if you want to get the balance, you need to process all the blocks from 10:30 up to the current height. So you would need to get each one of them, and then you need to look at those transactions to see if there has been a payment that was made to you. And you do it by looking through the transactions that are in the block. And if you do that, then you can find the coins that are yours. So it's a slightly different way of looking for your UTXOs or your coins. So you have to do things slightly different on the wallet side, but the ramifications for the user is that you have a single, durable, reusable address which cannot be used to actually find the payments that have been made to you. That's what a silent payment address is. And I think that that is just a fascinating way to do blockchain stuff, because it means that as of right now, this whole idea that we can't have anonymity is pretty much out the window. It means that you have to make a slightly different infrastructure for how wallets work. And ideally, the way that this would function is you should be, if you want to have privacy, you should be running your own node in your house. So like the requirements for that are like a $60 computer with a reasonable SSD connected to it, which might be something like $60. So we're talking like 120, $150. Run a full node in your house, connect that with your with your wallet app, and then boom, you'd have pretty decent privacy from there on. That's the ramifications. Now, if you're willing to trust some infrastructure like what Cake's got going on, then there's another slightly different way to handle this. But yeah, that's it in a nutshell. There are wallets out there that are supporting this, and for the Chia community, this is possible today. So essentially, you can always think of Chia as a superset of what you can do on Bitcoin. So if you ever see a BIP that looks sort of interesting, if the question gets asked, oh, could we do that on Chia? The answer is always going to be yes. Like you can do it, because anything you can do on Chia has a more expressive smart contract programming language. Therefore, anything that gets conceptualized that you can do with Bitcoin script, you can do it in Chia. And this, we can look at the spec in a little bit more detail. But yeah, essentially, this is capable of being done on Chia today.
Well, so where I saw that you posted or that you reposted FizBaWiz at FizBaWiz, Ken Griggs, um, that you posted that half of it had been accomplished. Um, what is lacking in finishing that out for Chia?
Well, do you feel like you have a good handle on silent payments, or should we go into that a little bit more? Because yeah, we'll move on to the next part if you feel like you got this one. I mean, it seems pretty simple. There's a whole bunch of nuance in this, right? I mean, I'm not going to go through all this math. This is
I
you
would,
know,
yeah, I would prefer we didn't get into the math. The sort of the metaphor of what's happening in the math and with the blocks is
well,
seems
let's just leave it at this. There's kind of the things that need to know about how this works is you generate a public address, it's durable and reusable. That's critical for us moving to the next part. On the back end, having a spend and scan key, these are the other things that are important, because the fact that you've got this scan key, it means that you can delegate to a third party, somebody that can find out about your coins. Obviously, you would then be giving up that privacy aspect to whoever you've given the scan key to, but it doesn't compromise your coins, right? It doesn't compromise your UTXOs because it's differentiated from your spend key. So the key that's associated with being able to move those coins and those UTXOs around is different from the key that can be used to find them. So if you're familiar with what's called an XPub, or on Chia we call that a master public key, these are essentially a similar concept, because it's a way that you can find all the coins that are associated with something, and so that's kind of roughly how this works. So the next thing that I talked about in my post was, okay, well, the thing that's kind of yucky still about this is you still have to have something like this, which is not desirable. Like this is just a bunch of garbage characters. Like, who knows if you got these right? And if you've seen some people have trouble with this, like some people have been getting attacked because, like, obviously we can't put all these characters on the screen in a small form factor screen like a phone. And so what oftentimes will happen is you'll show like maybe that many characters, and then I don't know, maybe this many characters, right? Well, what some people have been doing is they've been trying to generate addresses that just match this part and maybe this part, right? So that when you look at it in your wallet, you don't know if you've got the right address, and you might get it wrong. And so if you copy an address, you might copy the wrong one. And so variety of people have been attacked in this fashion. So having something like this is still not the end state. It's not the gold standard. What you really want is something like, ENS names or something like that, right? Where you have a name that's friendly, that's known, something like Lucas.Chia, right? Or Lucas.BTC. And obviously there would be a land rush, name grab, blah, blah, blah. So we're not going to concern ourselves with all of that kind of stuff. But just like a way to make a friendly style name that you could bind to this is really a desirable thing. So that's what an on-chain naming scheme refers to. So let me pull up that second half of what we're talking about with respect to how do we make crypto really easy to use. So it would be coupling a durable, reusable address that maintains privacy to a naming scheme. So let me grab.
Yeah, and to you said attack. What we've seen is somebody creates that similar address and sends somebody a small transaction to get that into their wallet, and then waits for them to accidentally click on it. And I forget when I first we talked about it on FOMO recently. Um, when we first started to see those, and now even you see people grinding these addresses until they get like Lucas down at the as the last five characters. I now have a Solana address that ends in Lucas. Lucky me. Still with us, Grant?
Yeah, I'm just pulling up the thing I said I was going to pull up.
Oh, gotcha. Well,
Sometimes I preload all my tabs, and sometimes I'm less good about preloading tabs.
I
So
see. I see. Sorry to rush you.
yeah, no worries. But it is dead air, so I was hoping you'd just keep talking for a minute. Okay, so this is what I was referring to. So a fully decentralized name service on Chia with a mechanism where the name is not revealed until after it's included in the name registry. Okay, so what are we talking about here? So fully decentralized name service. Right now, what we have in Chia is there are two entities that are running naming things. So we've got the Names DAO group that I have liked a lot, and then we've got the guys with Icer and the what's it call it the folks over in China that have been running CNS, so the Chia naming system. So those two things both exist, but they're both entities that are existing, and they didn't do everything on chain. So there is like an indexer that's happening. There's a way that NFTs are getting minted. These NFTs are used to bind names together. So that's kind of the current state of the art. Is we've got these two things that are out there, kind of as centralized entities that are doing stuff, right? So we've got Names DAO. How do they work? They allow you to register these names. It's .xch. They've got a fee for how it all works, and it's run by these guys, and they have a service out there that's looking at the chain, and they're essentially cutting these NFTs and then running resolver systems. And there's way that you can completely resolve things on chain, but they're not fully decentralized. So what
So,
um
and when you say resolver services too, so are basically, or maybe on what they create an NFT, and then it's possible to find that NFT in somebody's wallet and send things to that wallet. Is
Yeah,
that
these are fully discoverable on chain. So you can, using the chain, check to see if a name's been registered, right? Like, so I don't know, we can look up Lucas or whatever and see if Lucas is referenced. And it looks like that. Like you could pick up Lucas for 20 name tokens.
somebody? Well, maybe not. But whatever. I thought there was a 6 character limit.
Well, they recently moved it down. So see,
Uh,
it
yeah,
was 6, right? And then they moved down to 5. So now you can
gotcha.
get the 5s.
Well, um, I learned so much here.
See, and it launched just recently, so you weren't wrong. You're just late.
Okay, okay. Um, well, back to a more permanent solution or on-chain solution is that
Well, so like I said, the way this works is there's an indexer, there's like something that is sitting adjacent to right next to the Chia blockchain, and it's looking for the thing, and then it creates NFTs and it does all this kind of stuff. So it's not entirely on chain. So if NamesDAO decided they were going to stop doing this, then this would be not eternal, right? And not only that, but when you register a name, then these things expire, so they're only good for a certain period of time. So what Ken proposed is a fully decentralized way of doing this. So this was the post that he put together, and this is where I said half of the work's been done, right? So the half of the work is just coming up with a way to do this at all, right? Like knowing how you can do something is the beginning of actually getting it done. It's why BIPs are created at all in the first place, right? Is somebody has to have an idea for something you could do, and then other people look at it and sort of pick it apart, and then eventually, once you come to an understanding of how it can or should be done, then the second half is to implement it, to have somebody that actually wants to do it. And the cool thing about this one is that once you do this and you deploy this stuff on chain, there is no entity that could go away and stop doing it and cease to exist. Like once we have this, we just have it. And if the rules are such that these don't expire, then once you grabbed a name, it's yours forever. So that was what was proposed. And so essentially how this works is you're able to hash a name, like say I wanted Lucas.Chia, right? So you hash that and then you register the hash. And then after you've registered it with the hash, then you reveal it and you say, hey, I own Lucas.xch. And since there's no way to reverse that hash, that registration process, wouldn't be sniped because you wouldn't really know what somebody was registering until they actually registered it and revealed it. So, maybe you could try and steal one away from somebody or whatever by doing some weird stuff, but and I'm sure Ken's thought through some of those things as well. But yeah, anyway, this is how it works is essentially you bind a name to some payment address. And when you bind a name to a payment address, then you get this kind of a thing where, you have bizpubwiz.chia and it points at some address. Well, the thing that you would then want to point it to is what we were just talking about, is you would want to point it at something like this. Because once this registration's been done once, this is durable, reusable, and doesn't leak your privacy. So now you sort of get the best of all possible worlds here. You have a durable, reusable payment address bound to an easily knowable name such as this. And that is like a huge part of solving the problem of how do you make blockchain payments as easy as Venmo or as easy as anything else. And that's super, super desirable. So you couple these two ideas together, and I think you've got something pretty powerful.
That would be ideal. So what? There's a roadblock here in this concept. Can you isolate or describe what that roadblock is, or
There's no roadblock in any of this. This is 100% achievable. There is nothing stopping the
ah,
world from doing this right now.
well, all right then. Chia Army, onward Chia Army, or Chia Soldier. I won't sing it. That one.
Your Lutheran roots are coming through in spades. I know exactly what you're referring to.
A
I've heard that song
mighty
so many
fortress is
times.
our blockchain. There we go. That Yeah. Martin Luther did not write "Onward, Christian Soldiers," but he did write "A Mighty Fortress Is Our God."
Marching as to war.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's more of an Anabaptist song, but we like it, and it's a good one. It's a real good one. So
Yeah, so you couple these two concepts together, and man, you're really cooking here now. So then the only last thing is, which I alluded to, and this one's a little trickier because I don't know how this 100% works to preserve privacy and have the rest of everything. So the last piece is I'm still thinking a lot about the CNI custody solution, right? Which has a huge upgrade to safety. So this upgrades anonymity and ease of use. So that's what you get when you do these two things together, because you get ease of use because you can put a friendly name on a reusable address. You get anonymity because you're using silent payments. Those two things together are super cool together. That's just like all straight goodness. But the thing you don't get is safety, right? And by safety, I mean you're still walking around with suitcases full of cash in essence, right? Anytime you have a private key and you have these coins and you can just spend these coins whenever you have access to that key, means that that key has to be really carefully protected. And if you ever you know lose control of it, potentially all of your funds are at risk, which is not an ideal situation, right? So oftentimes what people say is, well, you should multi-sig, or you should do this, that, or the other thing, and no solution has really been foolproof nor really reusable, nor does it produce the kind of long-term safety that people really want. But when Chia proposed their custody solution, now that's starting to look a lot like what you want, because now you have a thing that exists on chain which can limit which coins can be spent, the speed at which they can be spent, and give you time to react to a situation where you're like, hey, I wasn't trying to spend any coins. Let me do the thing that allows me to, claw those coins back and, do a rekey and all kinds of goodness that you would otherwise want to do if you're going to hold a large amount of your money in some sort of a blockchain asset. So that last part is undone, and I think there may yet be a blocker here, because the way that they crafted that, they didn't think about doing any kind of silent payment thing at all, and I don't know if it even could be done, but gosh darn it, I want it.
But ostensibly, you could use silent payments to move it to a different address not associated with you, and then custody at that new address, right?
You could, and that would give you that privacy aspect, but it would require you to do an additional coin spend, which that could get expensive.
Got you. It wouldn't just be one mojo. It would be
Well,
with all.
you'd have to two hop it, right? Because every time you got a silent payment, then you would have to take that coin that was resulted, and then you'd have to hop it into the custody solution. I don't know if you could immediately get it right into the custody solution. Maybe you could, but if you ever lost, if you ever had, maybe you could just get it straight into the custody solution, because maybe you could just, no, I don't think it would work. I don't think it works that way. I don't know enough about it. We'd have to get somebody on here that knows this a little bit more and could speak to if this is possible. I think there's a gap here, though.
I think we need whiteboards, and someday I want to ask you to like break down some of just like what's like the costs of transactions and these coin bundle spins that you talk about. Because I think that's interesting. But we're rolling up on the end. One other thing that I noticed that I know might be affecting some Chia members, other listeners, is Mt. Gox is releasing their coins. Any thoughts about that?
Well, I'm excited to see that Mt. Gox is finally releasing these coins. I know that there's a lot of people who lost money and lost their Bitcoin because of what happened there. And I think it's exciting that they're essentially were forced to hold during a very volatile time in Bitcoin's history. And some people are going to find themselves being fantastically wealthy. If you had 20 or 30 BTC in Mt. Gox when that was only worth, a few dollars or maybe a couple $100, you're now going to find yourself a multi-millionaire. That's pretty amazing.
These are BTC's trust fund kids. I saw a great graphic on my Twitter feed, that was like the hodl a hodl line, and it's just like one's an arc, and then another one has all these valleys and pits and lightning bolts and everything else. And I thought that's the truer one. So do you know the amount that they're getting? Does this get into what coin holders are getting back? How much was lost to God knows where, and um, how close to the amount of their holdings they're getting back?
I don't know any of those numbers because I'm not a party to this. I wasn't trading Magic the Gathering cards when this first came out. I wasn't really into BTC at that time. So I don't really know any of those details, but I think this idea that it's going to cause a lot of selling pressure, I don't I don't 100% believe that. I think a lot of this was in the hands of the many, right? And I think that the people who are going to suddenly find themselves with BTC, I don't think that they're just going to rush out and dump all those coins on the market and say, I want to be in fiat. I think these are people who have probably been looking at that BTC and said, oh man, if only I had that, then, I would be a whole coiner or whatever, and maybe a multi coiner. And they're probably going to sell some portion of it because obviously we all want to buy things, but maybe they'll just straight trade BTC for whatever it is that they want to buy. A lot of places are taking BTC as straight payment. So
It is,
I wouldn't anticipate that this would become some huge sell wave, honestly.
huh, interesting. What about Silk Road? Like the United States government got a lot of Bitcoin when they seized the Silk Road, and I assume that they're going to sell those off someday in some sort of auction or slowly release it. Have you ever followed that, or is that
I'd be shocked if they do that. Honestly, like if Trump becomes president, he's said a lot of things about how he wants to be a part of Bitcoin, how he wants to have Bitcoin be a part of U.S. policy and whatever. I mean, that I think any government that's selling off their coins is sort of fumbling the bag. Why would the U.S. government sell Bitcoin for something that they can create out of thin air? Like, what would be the point of that?
mm, good question.
I mean, if the U.S. government wants more dollars, they can just go print more dollars. They don't need to maybe sell assets to do that.
I guess so, but they do so. I mean, they sell other assets in order to balance their to balance their books. And
What balanced books?
okay, fine. To add to the narrative of trying to balance their books, um, and I
The
guess more.
only the only thing I see them routinely doing is selling oil out of the strategic reserve. That I see them doing pretty regularly.
Well, okay, so and there you go. So
But
and
that to me is, if any other entity was doing what they're doing, that would be like market manipulation, right? It's like whenever they see that the price is too high, aka there's a top, they just sell like mad at the top to like tank the price and then buy back when it's low. I mean, I wish I could do that all day long. It's like anytime I see the price too high, I just use my money printer to valve the price of some other asset and then just like swoop it up on when I tank it again.
Well, so
Crazy.
I mean, like knowing what you just said, what the reason that the United States has not sold their Bitcoin before was because the narrative of the politarati was that Bitcoin belonged to terrorists and drug dealers. And now that they have whipped out their scepter and blessed the soldiers of 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 Satoshi, dubbed him Sir Satoshi, Knight of the Realm. Um, I would guess that they are going to start selling Bitcoin here and there.
I don't think so. I really don't think that. I think if they do that, that's going to be the biggest bag fumble of all time. But I think if Biden gets back in, he might do that. But I think that they're going to hold on to this. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if more nation states start buying Bitcoin and adopting the treasury strategy of like a lot of countries and a lot of companies are doing. Like this is becoming a monetary standard. I don't think that they're going to do that. I think
Well,
that'd be unwise.
I've been impressed with, if not our politicians, members of the bureaucracy of the Treasury, the Federal Reserve, understanding Bitcoin as a financial instrument and making moves to get ahead of crypto, even in the case of Ethereum and other chains. So I would go back to our earlier conversation about Germany. You were surprised Germany was liquidating their Bitcoin. I would. I guess to me, what they might be looking at this now is saying like this is a technological innovation. At some point, did you hold on to IBM once there were IBM compatible computers
Well,
and Mac?
I, I would disagree with Germany doing this. Like I think they're making the wrong move here, but they're in a different situation, right? Germany cannot make dollars. Like they have to buy dollars. So of course they can make as many Deutschmarks or whatever. Or no, actually they can't. Like they're on Euro standard. Well, they're buying dollars. Like they can't make dollars. They've got to buy them just like anybody else. I mean
Well,
that's different for them.
they are also they pretty much I don't know, setting the pace of the euro standard too. And if you think about it being like the price of commodities, the inputs from the other countries, well, who even knows how long the euro standard holds? But
Ooh, you're predicting the collapse of the euro?
I did I didn't say that, did I?
I don't know. Maybe you did. I just
You know, I wondered in 2009, with Syriza and the did you follow Italy and Greece in
well, I
2009?
I know Croatia is very unhappy with their adoption of the Euro standard. The
Many
you know,
countries are, and
yeah.
did Brexit go the way of the hand wringers thought it would? Britain has been doing a lot better. I think we're going to see a lot of countries. Again, my long prediction coming out of this is that we're going to see a lot of commodity and tax based countries. We're going to get away from the narrative of specie backed international trading systems. It's going to be about how much debt does a country have, how much is the cost of their commodities, what do they produce, and I think that these tools that we have are going to hold their feet to the flame, so to speak. So
Well, if the debts are priced in USD, then there may be a gift given to a lot of these guys if we have sudden like massive debasement of USD, because they're going to be able to, just like the farmers of old, as we discussed not that long ago, pick up dollars on the super cheap and pay back their loans to whoever is going to end up holding that bag of worthless USD.
well, going to Japan's doom loop, but we're out of time to dig into that. But maybe a topic for another day. And maybe even the creation of the euro. The euro was created in emulation of the federal system of the United States, a federal like a commerce. The European Commerce Community started in the mid '90s, early '90s, also on the backs of the mines, the mining interests. But that's again, that's we're at the end of the hour. I don't want to go too deeply in it, but just of note, like it wasn't an emergent European idea. It was at the suggestion of the United States, who was giving them dollars at the time. It would be so much nicer if you guys had a mirror to our system here. So, anyway, interesting episode today. Very excited about the silent payments and the fixed names. That would be, especially on Chia, that would be a an immense improvement. So hopefully some of our listeners out there are on it right now. Deep
Yeah,
in
and I
water.
think we'd be remiss if we didn't mention that there's a bounty out there. So there's some amount of prepayment that's already been done with respect to somebody getting the naming system that was proposed by Fizz Wiz, aka Ken Griggs, to actually get this done. So I don't know if there's an official registry out there, if it's just ex post, but yeah, some amount of cash has already been put up for the developer who actually goes out there and implements this.
I didn't see that, or if I did, I don't remember it. What was the bounty?
I don't recall the exact amount at this point, but I think it's at least hundreds of Chia. Not that that's some fantastic amount of money these days with the price of Chia going down, but yeah, it's at least a couple $1,000s has been put up.
Well, I'll make a yeah, very interesting. Well, that's a good amount of dollars or Chia, whatever you want to denominate it in. So
I wouldn't be surprised if the Chia benefactor, aka Michael Taylor, has also put some amount to say, "Hey, I'm willing to back this initiative as well."
I didn't want to ask on air, but I wondered if it was Michael Taylor.
No, I think it's others. I think Ken might have even like offered some up to anybody that was willing to take a stab at it.
Oh, it's amazing. It's amazing to see these community members. Um, Such great support. One other thing, and I keep saying we're at the end, we're over. But sometime too, have you ever followed the British um, the payment that they offered for a maritime clock and that technical solution back in the day?
No.
Oh, it's a great story. It's a great story. I'll
All
send you a
right.
link.
Well, we'll get into that at some other point. But yeah, great episode today. Love talking about silent payments, and I think we got to do this with some routine. Dig into some technical stuff on blockchains and various chains. So that this is something that I just can't stop thinking about. So glad we had a chance to talk about it today.
Sure, absolutely. Next time, Hedera. you'll be on the hot spot. Just
That's
kidding.
right. And just to remind everybody, Wednesday we've got Nathan coming on the show, so we'll be talking about some things related to the law and potentially his running for judge. So we're still covering different political things on the show along with blockchain.
Maybe tomorrow, as a primer for Nathan, I want to get into adversarial versus inquisitorial justice systems, if I'm allowed to. But yeah.
Exciting.
All right. Well, see you tomorrow.